Shana Tova, and a good Yontif to all. It's great to see everyone here, those joining on live stream, Shana Tova, and I'll tell you that it's great to be here again today. It really is an honor to stand in front of everyone here at Congregation Beth Judea and to be a rabbi. That is an incredible honor that you've afforded me, so thank you. I know that there are a number of reasons that everyone is here today. There's so much going on up here. There are a number of reasons that people are here today, but I do know the primary reason, and that is yesterday I said I had 2 parrot jokes, and I only told one. So here's the second one, and it's kind of interesting. In a bizarre way, it can tie into what we're thinking about today on the second day of Rosh Hashanah as we pursue this process of redemption, which is far from easy. It's the idea of staying in constant motion. And constant motion and change is ultimately, I think, what helps to sustain the greater Jewish community. So here's the story. There's a burglar. And the burglar decides to break into a house because that's what burglars do. And they go into the house, and this burglar is grabbing as much stuff as he can and pulling the TVs off the walls and taking all of the jewelry. And all of a sudden, this burglar hears, God is watching. House is dark, doesn't think anyone is home, and continues to do what he's doing. God is watching. Keeps getting a little bit louder and louder. God is watching. So the burglar says, this is kind of spooky. I'm supposed to be the one who people are afraid of, but now I'm getting a little afraid myself. So the burglar turns on the light, and the burglar sees a parrot there. You knew that was coming. Burglar sees the parrot there. And the burglar looks at the parrot, and the parrot looks at the burglar, and the burglar says to the parrot, "What's your name?" The parrot says, "Moses." Burglar says, "What kind of person names their parrot Moses?" The parrot says, "The same kind of person who names their Rottweiler God." All right. We'll see if we can find any more parrot jokes for next year. But it's funny because it is the idea. We have this idea that God watches us. It's actually what appears right on this lectern here. Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. God is watching, and God is making sure that we have the ability, actually it's us who needs to make sure of this, that we have the ability to draw upon the skills that God gave us as individuals so that not only do we recognize that God is watching, but also we have that inspiration within us to act upon the gifts God gave us. So many of us have different talents. One of the things that I find interesting is something called asset mapping. Asset mapping is when we sit here together, and I'll tell you, and Cantor, I might be speaking for you as well. When I look out at the group, and again, it doesn't matter if our congregation has 3 people in it or has 3,000 people in it. Well, actually, that should be our biggest problem, is that we have 3,000 people in the congregation. But to me, I find that we're gathered together under the common understanding of we are building together Congregation Beth Judea. So I look out and I don't see doctors or lawyers or accountants or any type of profession. I'm looking at a group of people who love Congregation Beth Judea, and that's why we're here. But amongst the crowd, when it comes to asset mapping, is this idea of, and I'm just going to use the front row as an example, we might not know that Bruce is excellent at assigning honors, but that's a skill that Bruce has. That's an asset to the congregation. We might not know that Sue and Aaron, here sitting in the front row, which is very brave, Sue and Aaron, it's very, very brave to be in the front row, that you have skills that can inspire us. Like Sue has HR experience, that people might not know that, and that's something that can help us as we build our congregation and community. And Aaron also gives very good hugs for those who ever need a hug. Aaron is there. Not quite as sweet as mine, but He's here. You know, we have Jerry and Heidi who volunteer their time and help the congregation in many different ways, from the sisterhood to leading services, all of these things. And Maury, when I look at you, I think about you in the choir, you know, that you sing, and you bring that aspect of beauty to the congregation. So all of us have different strengths, and all of us have different weaknesses. Our challenge, and I'm going to use my Zachary too. I hope you're watching, Zach. The idea that Zachary's an artist. And if you haven't seen his work, please talk to my wife following services today. But Zach is a real artist, and he has a gift. And as he went off to college this year for his freshman year, and as all college freshmen have done, and all of us have done in the past, not knowing exactly what to major in, we support whatever he chooses to do. But both Allison and I have said to him, God has given you a real gift with this art. So no matter what you do in life, don't lose that gift. You can keep it to yourself and create things that are meaningful to you, or you can incorporate it into your professional life, but don't lose that. So now we find ourselves with the challenge of being, in a sense, that connecting point from generations past to generations still to come. It's our responsibility to, in a sense, stand on the shoulders of those who came before us so that we can see the road ahead and make sure that we reach and achieve our goals. In this book, again, that I share, 60 Days, A Spiritual Guide to the High Holidays, there's a short section here that applies exactly to that notion. And that notion, this story, in a sense, is part of what the Baal Shem Tov teaches. And it says this: the cumulative mitzvot of the past generations give us strength. The good in our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents, all the good that they did accumulates, and that becomes our inheritance. We might feel small, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. Although we are small, we can see even farther than the giants because they are standing on the shoulders of the past generations. 9 generations ago, the Baal Shem Tov would go to a special place on Rosh Hashanah, and he would light a fire in a special way, and he would say a special prayer, and as a result, the entire world would be blessed. In the next generation, his successors knew the location of the special place, and they knew how to light the fire, but they forgot the prayers. So instead, they would pray, whatever the Baal Shem Tov achieved here with his special fire and his special prayers, we should also achieve. The next generation knew the location, but they forgot the rest. They forgot about the fire, and they forgot about the prayer. So they just stood in the location and said, whatever the Baal Shem Tov achieved here, we should achieve in the future. Today, we've forgotten even the location. So what do? We tell the story. We are asked to do only that which we are capable of. We do not have to be like the giants of the past. We just have to do what is in our power to do and stand on their shoulders so we can continue to build tradition. When we do so, we lay claim to everything they achieve, plus we add our own special part. And that small part, added to the good deeds of our ancestors, might just be enough to tip the scales in our favor. So that in itself arouses different types of emotions and feelings. On the one hand, it shows some sense of sadness because each subsequent generation was forgetting what they learned in previous generations, from previous generations. And that's something that I fear is happening actively right now within the greater Jewish community, is this idea of everything that was done in the past, everything needs to be changed to move forward. But that's not true. We have to have that strong foundation, and that is represented by what our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents put in place for us. my family is not a regular kugel-eating family. But I'll tell you, this Yontif, Allison made my mom's kugel. And it was delicious, of course. It was delicious, and certainly much better than my mom's. No, Mom, I'm just kidding. I know you're watching. Yours is still the best. But we have to find that medium in the middle. But again, that in a sense brought me back to sitting at my dining room table on Yontif when my dad would be there and my mom would be there, and I would see my siblings there. It's important to keep those traditions alive and to stimulate our emotions in ways that remind us of what we need and should do, and then challenge us at the same time to embrace the movement of society today and building a future where that sense of the past is never lost, but rather turns into a charge for the future. It turns into our redefining what is relevant for the future. So it's important for us to realize that. What we've done in today's society as a whole, and I'm guilty of this as well, is we avoid personal interaction. Now, if I avoided personal interaction effectively, this drasha would have started 30 minutes ago. I'm just kidding. No. But in reality, we do what we can to avoid face-to-face contact these days. Everything is automated. And my concern is that we too might feel automated because we say to ourselves, why is it worth picking up the phone and giving a call to someone if I can just send a one-word text, something creative like fine, or sure, or okay, or better yet, we don't have to use words. We can have just our sentiments. There's a story, just it's like an emoji. It's a little picture. If it could be automated, it would be like a grunt or something like that. But everyone would know what that meant. It reminds me of this story of there are four bubbies who are sitting together, and they get together all of the time. And they're sitting there, and the first bubby says, oh, oy. The second bubby says, oy vey. Third bubby says, oy vey is mir. The last bubby slams her hand on the table and says, I thought we weren't discussing the kids today. But they knew exactly what they were talking about. But it's so true that these kind of things happen. And we avoid taking the time that is really needed to maintain that intimate and personal interaction. So I was thinking about this, and I wrote this, and I think many of us might be able to relate to this. Everything becomes overwhelming when it comes to communication and passing on tradition. So just imagine if you called your bubby or your zaidi or your mother or your father, or you received a call from kids and grandkids, whatever it might be, and this was the message you received. Thank you for calling. You are very important to me. Please listen carefully, as this message has recently changed. If you're looking for a kugel, knishes, chicken soup, or brisket, sorry kids, the kitchen is closed. If you're a member of our synagogue calling for a donation, we're very sorry. Please hang up and try your call again. If you're the rabbi, the cantor, or anyone who attends morning minyanim and you need us for a minyan, please, we come when we can. And by the way, don't leave a message because we don't check this voicemail too often. Send a text. The shorter, the better. That's how we are today. That's just kind of how we are today. And in terms of language itself being one of our most powerful tools, what message does that leave us with? We don't care. That's what I fear. It leaves this message of, I'm doing something else with my time, okay? So thanks for calling. But I don't have the time. And we have to make the time. That's the challenge. And the language that we use to make that time is going to be critical for building a future for all of us. We have to adapt in a way to some of the new language that's out there. And I am not in any manner, shape, or form going to say that I know that language well. I don't. I keep being reminded that, that I'm in my 50s, which is somewhat devastating for me, because I look in the mirror and I see the 18-year-old with the mullet driving the Camaro, but I'm not that person anymore. But the language that we use to relate to the goodness and the accomplishments of our world today, it's strange and scary language. We don't hear so often, "Great job." What do the kids say to each other? "You killed it." That's what they say. "You killed it. You're a rock star. You killed it." That connotes something very different for me than, when I first heard that phrase, I'm saying to myself, what did I do wrong? It's like if you ever want to kill a conversation that's taking place, just have me walk in the room. The rabbi's here. Ooh, we can't talk anymore. But realistically, now you can laugh harder if you want. We've changed that connotation. It's like when I was growing up in the 80s, there was this group, Run DMC. Okay? And I'm watching everyone, like, yeah, we know Run DMC. But Run DMC would say in one of their songs, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. So if I said, Aaron, you're one bad dude, that's different than why we're here today. Okay? Because God's saying, all of you are bad dudes. We've got to change our ways, and God's not giving us a compliment, but rather God is saying we have to grow and we have to change, because bad sometimes means bad. It doesn't really mean good, just like killing it. Or they even say now, you murdered it. That's even better than killing it. That's not giving the right message. That's not giving the right message. On Facebook itself, there was a meme that went around recently that said, can you describe your profession without using any words that people would know what you do? That's what this is. So I wrote, publicly discuss the same book year after year, and we still don't understand it. Because that's what we do. Year after year, we do this. But we need to develop some type of bridge, a bridge of continuity. And I think that change, in a sense, is part of that bridge of continuity. Just this past Shabbos, we read Parashat Nitzavim. And Parashat Nitzavim is a fascinating parasha, because if we really just focused on that parasha, we would learn so many countless lessons over and over and over again, talking about the importance of standing together as individuals, okay, because we count, all right, and standing together as a community, but a community of equals. And the parasha says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, that all of us are standing together today before God. We know that. That's really one of the reasons why we're here today. We're told that we are standing together with those leaders in the community and those who don't even know how to speak in the community, the littlest of children. We're told in Parashat Nitzavim that generations past are standing with us. That's the basis of our foundation of tradition. And generations still to come are with us. They're the ones putting their hope in our decisions and our reflections and ability, because they know they're going to be standing on our shoulders. And we're all standing there, and we're being prepared to be counted like sheep, as the liturgy tells us today. One by one, we pass before God. God then has the opportunity to count each one of us. And think about how that God would count all of us. I wouldn't like to be counted as, you're number 7. Well, 7's a good number. You're number 27. I wouldn't want that. I'd want God to look at me and say, Maureen, let me tell you what's good, and let me tell you what you need to work on. We learn each other's names. And when we call each other by names, it creates this personal connection to people. And it reminds people that they matter. If you know someone's name, that means you're important. You're important to that person. During my interview process here, I remember we were sitting in the conference room upstairs, and name tags weren't out. But I knew everyone's name, and I think that made a difference. Dana is nodding, so you hired me because I remembered your name. Okay, that's very good. That's very, very good. Good. Okay, but Nitzavim, Anashim Nitzavim, who are standing before God today, we have a dual role, and this is critical. We have a dual role as people. Okay, first, we have to be ourselves. But secondly, we have to be something for other people, because it's the environment that we create that allows other people to thrive, to have that sense of belonging, feeling counted. So I believe that that's one of the reasons that the Torah states Anashim as people and Nitzavim. What are Nitzavim? Well, we're going to translate it in Parashat Nitzavim as people. But we know from the very first stories in the Torah, Nitzavim can be translated as mysterious people, perhaps, mysterious beings. Because when Abraham is sitting outside of his tent, and God sends the angels to Abraham, and he performs this mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, of welcoming in strangers to his tent. These are nitzavim. They look like people, but maybe they're a little bit different. So in some ways, we know from the Abraham story that these were 3 different angels who came. But we couldn't tell they were angels by looking at them. So maybe part of us creating community for others is acting as angels for others. What does an angel do? An angel holds our hand. An angel stands by our side. We'll never know if we're angels, but when we come together and make that profound difference for someone by simply being present, I can't help but think that that's God reminding us that we have a greater purpose in our lives than just being ourselves. I'll tell you, I experience this regularly as a rabbi, that people come into my office and they are, wanting me to help them, but they leave and they've helped me with whatever was on my mind, and it's truly incredible. But I'll give you 2 quick, tangible examples. One, we have a Chaver member here, Dr. Louis Lefkowitz. Lou, I hope you're watching. Okay? And when Zach was born, Allison was taken into the delivery room. I was waiting to get called in. And I started really becoming very scared, because 18-year-old Maury Zimbalist with the mullet driving the Camaro was about to become a dad. And that was so scary for me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Dr. Lefkowitz shows up, and he holds my hand, and he says, "It's all going to be okay." He was just doing what he ordinarily would do, but to me, he was an angel from God coming to tell me not to worry, it's all going to be okay. All the more so we're going to fast forward a couple of years, and I'm at his grandson's bris. And the grandson's bris is taking place in the house where the father of the new child grew up. And and it's packed. I mean, the pre-COVID, we're standing literally face to face in this house. And they decide they want to do the bris upstairs where there'll be fewer people there. And they said, "Rabbi, you've got to come with us." And I said, "Great." And we went upstairs, and in a room about the size of this lectern, we put at least 30 people right here. And the rabbi, the moil, says to me, "We want you to be in front." Now, I'm not great with that kind of stuff, being in the front. I know what's happening, and I'm perfectly content with standing in the back. That's absolutely fine. And before I knew it, it got really hot in there. And I started schwitzing. And then everyone started to get real fuzzy. And then the moil, who's explaining everything, is starting to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Womp, 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 womp. And I reached down and I grabbed whatever hand was next to me because I needed help. And that was Dr. Lefkowitz, who happened to be standing right next to me. So again, I feel like this is something where we don't know. We don't know how we impact people, but we do. And we do so in ways that are hard to explain, and we might never even know. The funny end of that story is that when we all came back downstairs, everyone was like, "How's the bris?" And everyone, those coming downstairs were saying things like, "Oh, the bris was terrific, no problems. The rabbi passed out, but he's okay now. It's all good. It's all good." Okay, but here, we have to understand the impact of what we do. It has hidden consequences or hidden results that we might know or we might not see. But I'll tell you that that's exactly why we need to engage. That's exactly why we have to create a community for people to have experiences in, not necessarily like that, but even something like feeling the embrace of a supportive community when we celebrate a simcha, when we suffer a loss. All of these different things are important, and it requires our active engagement, okay? The fortunate thing that we have as being people is that if we try and we fail, that's okay, we tried. It's when we don't try and guarantee our own failure that we've got a real problem. We can change the impact we make for others. We can do that. And part of doing that is going and reaching out and apologizing for the things that we know we've done wrong, okay? Trusting in God that God will forgive us for the things that we don't know we did wrong, but we need to repent for as well. But we can change that. What makes it challenging is if we don't engage and try, then we leave a gap. And that gap can be the hole that, in a sense, everyone is falling into. Why should I do what I'm doing? And you stop. But we need everyone to continue to do what you're doing to fill that hole. If you see something that you don't necessarily like, now is the time for us to say, I'm going to change that. If there's something lacking that you think that as a community we would enjoy, now is time to say, I'm going to make sure that what is missing for me is not missing for anyone else, because I can't imagine that others aren't feeling this. That's really important because we have intention and we need to take responsibility, and this is all part of our process of introspection, but our response as a community needs to be cohesive and confident. Okay? We need to create that sense of trust and belonging and showing that we care. We will experience pain from time to time. We know that that is part of life. We know that not every decision is going to satisfy everyone, but if we're silent, what happens? That gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I hate to think about the imagery of us standing on the shoulders of our ancestors and looking out and seeing a huge gorge. What's going to happen for the future? How do we fill that gorge? Mahatma Gandhi said, a person, man, is a product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. If we approach something going, this is never going to work, you know what happens? It doesn't work. But if we approach something and we say, we're going to make it work, well, then we're going to make it work, and we're going to be better for that. It's all our approach to how we want things to grow and change and build upon for future. I think that's really, really important. Now, first day of rabbinical school, they tell you that once you walk in the gates of the seminary, you have to start thinking and acting like a rabbi. Because as soon as you say you're in rabbinical school, people are going to ask you questions that they would ask a rabbi, even if you have no idea, okay? I'm sure that's true with other professions as well, As soon as someone enters medical school, my guess is that I'm looking at some of my doctors who are here, I would imagine that they're asked questions that a doctor would be asked, even though they're a student. I think the person who comes to mind for me, who had his thoughts guide his behaviors so that he could fulfill a dream in a way that everyone would recognize, is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali said he was the greatest of all times, and if you Google who is the greatest boxer of all times, Muhammad Ali. He thought it, he lived it, it guided him with what he did. In the eulogy that Billy Crystal wrote for Muhammad Ali, something that I encourage absolutely everyone to watch after Yontif, it's about 15 minutes, it's incredible. Billy Crystal said, he predicted the round he would knock someone out in, and then he would do it. He would do it. He said, I'm going to knock you out in this particular round, and he did it. That's unbelievable. Crystal continues, he was funny, he was beautiful, he was the most perfect athlete you ever saw, and those were his own words. Crystal continued, and this is now the first time that Billy Crystal had the opportunity to meet Muhammad Ali, and it was at a huge affair, and Billy Crystal stood up and was imitating Muhammad Ali for the first time, and this was part of his shtick. He said, I'm announcing tonight, this is Billy Crystal acting as Muhammad Ali, I'm announcing tonight that I got new religious beliefs. From now on, I want to be known as Izzy Yiskowitz. I am now an Orthodox Jew. Izzy Yiskowitz, I am the greatest of all times. That's what he said, okay? But let's think about that. I am the greatest of all times. Chaim, life. Life provides us with the greatest of all times. Life does. And for all of us, let's embrace that idea. We have the ability to control our responses, and we have the ability to place our faith and our trust in each other. We can't hold back. We have to share, we have to grow, and we have to change. We need to surround ourselves with optimism and positivity, and speech in itself is our greatest asset that we have to do that. So as we embrace the year 5783, I pray that we are able to see and understand in new and effective ways, communicate with a vision and achieve a goal at hand, ensure that our congregation and the legacy that each and every one of us played to build this congregation lasts for countless generations to come. We know that there'll be stumbling blocks. We know that it will take courage, but we know that we have the ability to be the greatest of all times. Shana Tova, Gamar Chatima Tova, may we be written and inscribed in the book of life for a happy and a healthy, peaceful new year.